It's interesting because I've been doing this for 20 years and I've never heard someone explain it so well, so clearly. And I'm saying, yeah, I agree with that, and I agree with that, and I agree with that, and I agree with that. And that's really interesting. And one of the observations I would have is I often say to people, I've been an entrepreneur since 1988. No one has paid me since 1988 other than me. And then what happens is someone puts their hands up and says, I wasn't born in 1988, which makes it very embarrassing. But the thing, basically, I've been in sales all my life. And the one thing I found about Irish people is they never say no. They say maybe, and they say come back to us, and we sort of half like this. You go to Northern Ireland, they'll tell you no. You go to Germany, they'll say no. And it would be far nicer if they said no, rather than you wasting your time and they being polite to you. So you just need to be careful of that. But what I'm wanting to talk to you about now is the situation, and I've made some points and some notes of Aidan made, and I'll sort of cover them as we go along. But if you're doing all of the work that Aidan and Propelor are asking you to do, and then you get in front of someone, you could only make a good first impression. So you have to get it right first time. You can't come back and sort of say, I want to do it again. So what I'm going to do, in my point of view, is to say, this is how you get your pitch right. This is how you tell the story of your pitch and be clear, it's a story. The most boring pitches are the ones that are a list of facts. You need the facts by all means, but you need to make them a story. The thing I say to people all the time is that the first person you meet, an investor, potential investor, that isn't likely the person who's going to sign the check. So whoever you speak to first has to get your idea, has to understand your idea, and has to be capable of telling your idea to the person back in the office who does sign the check. Because what they have to do is say, we heard this fantastic idea today, and you need to meet these people, and let me tell you what it is that they do. And that's what you're looking to do. And I was talking to Rosaline about this the other day. I've been coaching people to pitch now for 20 years. It came up on my LinkedIn the other day that I'm 20 years in business. I said, oh, I didn't realize that. But almost 20 years ago, I was speaking at an event in Trinity. And he was a researcher, presented this idea. And all the people that were listed on Aidan's panel were judges on the panel, and so was I. And he made this pitch, and I sort of sat there, and I was listening, and I had no idea what he was talking about. None whatsoever. It just straight over my head. And that didn't worry me, because what he was talking about I wasn't technically familiar with. So at the coffee break, I said to the other judges, I said, did you get that? Did you understand it? Because I didn't. And they all went, no, we have no idea what he was talking about. So during the coffee break, I sidled over to this person and I said, look, just as a piece of advice, I didn't understand, but I don't understand what you're talking about. But I said, the other judges didn't understand what you were talking about. And he said, that's their problem. Now, it's not. It's his. He hawked that idea around for 2 years, never changed, never did anything different, and then just sort of petered out. So what I want to talk about really, in a sense, is that how do you pitch? How do you tell your story? But most importantly, how do you create a good first impression? That's what I'm here to talk to you about. So let's get our sleeves rolled up, and I'll sort of dig down into it. And I'll give you the template and how to tell the story of the template. And I'll also give you 2 or 3 examples of clients I've worked with and how they've told the story and how they've got investment and how they've won the investment. So that's what I'll do. I tend to rabbit on, so I'll time myself. Okay, so let's get started. So what's the first thing you need to do in terms of preparation? The first thing you need to do is whoever you're talking to, whoever is your audience, you need to walk in their shoes. You need to think about what is it that they want? What is it they're looking for? What is it that's going to be of interest to them? Speakers are always talking about what they want, and they're always thinking about what they want. But that's not good enough. If you're going to communicate with an audience, you have to be thinking, what is it they want? What is it that's something that we have that's really of benefit to them? So that's the key message. And every time I put this slide up and people say, why are the shoes there? And the shoes are there because Billy Connolly tells a story that says, if you want to understand someone, you've got to walk a mile in their shoes. And if at the end of the mile, you don't understand them, well, you're a mile away and you have their shoes. But the key, that's the reason the shoes are there. It's really to walk in the other person's shoes. Well, what do you need to do? The first thing that needs to be crystal clear in terms of preparation is people are going to want to know who your customers are. So, and I often explain this to people, if it's Google, it's an individual in Google. What does the individual in Google want? What does the individual in Hewlett-Packard want? You can't pitch to a huge conglomerate. You're always pitching to an individual. So you need to talk about who's the customer. And the example I would give you with that is the number of times, and I now coach thousands of people, and I meet them a couple of years later and I say, how's the business going? And they say, oh, it's going grand, but we pivoted it. And I'm saying, oh, how did you pivot? And I know the answer. I said, how did you pivot? And they said, the customer we thought we had hadn't the slightest interest in what we were doing, and we had to find another customer. So the most important thing from your point of view is to be absolutely crystal clear, to talk to customers, find out what customers want, find out what's the problem that customers have, and how does your solution solve their problem. That's the key to this. And I'll show you how to, in a sense, the example of the clients I have, how you turn that into a story that's sort of memorable and engaging. So the three questions you need to answer in terms of preparation is, who's my customer? Because that's who an investor needs to know. Who's your customer? What's the problem you solve for that customer? And finally, and this in some ways is presentation skills, but it's also critical, how is that customer better after they've introduced your solution to their problem? What are they saying to you as a result of implementing what you advise us to do? This is now happening, and this is how we've improved production, or we've reduced emissions, or whatever that is that you've done. But you need to be able to talk about that. People only buy things that make them better. And the other point I would make to you is, and as we go along, I'll explain this to you. And Aidan was talking about it. You start with an elevator pitch, which is probably 2 minutes over a cup of coffee with someone, but you need to hit the key points. You need to hit those 3 questions in that 2 minutes. And then they will say something like, which you would hope to say, well, that sounds really interesting, tell me more. Now you have permission to talk for another 10 minutes. And then you say something else, and then they say, oh, and how will you go about doing that? And then you have another 10 minutes, and then before you know where you are, you now have a conversation that lasts 15, 20, 30 minutes, and you can do something valuable. But it starts with that sort of elevator pitch. The elevator turns into a sales pitch, and the sales pitch turns into an investor pitch. But lots of the stuff, when I talk to investors, what people often say to me is the startup is trying to be an investor and think like an investor. You don't need to do that. You need to think like a salesperson. You need to think about, this is the amazing product we built. This is what we're really excited about. And we will need help with the financials advice, and we will need help with that. And that's what we're looking for to build a team. But first and foremost, they have to see, wow, if these people can do this, this is amazing. So let me tell you how we go about doing this. And this is the way I explain it. And it seems to work. I've been doing it now for quite a while. What I want you to do is imagine planets orbiting in space. And the planets are orbiting around the sun, in this particular case, which is called the problem story. So I believe every pitch should start by you saying, let me tell you how we fix this problem for this particular group of companies. That's with rare exception. And there is sometimes, and I'll explain that to you. Here's a young man here who, it was a rare exception. I saw him pitch a couple of months ago now, isn't it? A couple of months ago. And about 4 or 5 slides into his conversation, he'd already told us that he had $500,000 in business. Is that right? Okay. So if that case, I'd be saying, let me tell you how we got to $500,000 in business and let me tell you the problem we solve. Now I'm paying interest because it means there's business being generated. But in most cases, startups aren't that lucky to already have $500,000 in business. So start with the problem story. Tell me the problem story, and in telling me the problem story, you're likely to tell me who the customer is, and you're likely to mention names. And now I'm saying, oh, so if you can do it for them, you can do it for them, and you can do it for them, and you can do it for them. And I'll give you an example later on, where one of the teams I'm working for is supplying to hospitals. And they were able to tell me that there's 96 hospitals in Ireland, and they were already in 5 of them, and there's 1,700 hospitals in the UK, and they've already in 1 or 2 of those. Now you know there's a business, it's a serious business. So tell me the problem story, and it should be a story. Then the next thing that's absolutely critical from my point of view is, I've pointed at this. Who are you going to invoice? That's the thing I want to know, almost immediately. Who loves this and who will we send an invoice to? And I always tend to say, send an invoice, because that makes it very serious. You haven't got a business unless you're sending an invoice to someone. Now, you may do it in different ways. You may charge them an annual subscription or a monthly subscription, or so, but you're still sending an invoice. And I need to know, as soon as you tell me the problem story, I need to know next who you're going to send an invoice to. That's the piece of information I know. And the other thing I want to do is, sorry, let me go back a bit. I want to know who's the team, who's involved. And these are the 2 critical things. If you're not invoicing someone, you haven't sent out invoices, you can tell me about who you plan to send invoices to. But interestingly, you've got to decide in terms of your conversation and the order you tell the story in, which is the most appropriate to talk about now. This is the problem story. This is the team who have the experience and the knowledge and the background and the qualifications to do this. So perhaps you go problem story team. And then you say, this is who we're going to invoice in the future. This is how we're going to do this. If you have, like this young man here, problem story, let me tell you who we've already invoiced $500,000 for. Now I'm really interested. And who's done this? So this is the team. So they're the 3 critical planets in this story. That's what you have to talk about, and that's what you have to talk about sooner. The big mistake that everybody makes, back to here, the big mistake that everybody makes is they want to start talking about what they do, their app, their platform, their piece of kit that they've built. I have no interest in that until you tell me it solves a problem for me, or someone I care about, or someone who I love, or someone who will clearly pay money for this, and invoice. So the third conversation, part of the conversation is, so now we're saying, this is the problem story, this is the people we've already invoiced, or we plan to invoice, this is the team who've built this, and now the natural inclination is, okay, so what have you built? Now I want to know what you've built. But the danger is with everyone is you sit down in front of someone and they say, what do you do? And then you drone on about your app, and you drone on about your technology, and you drone on about it. But they haven't seen the answers to all the important questions that they need to see. And in lots of cases, the do isn't done. It's a wireframe, it's an idea, it's the first prototype, but it's not done, the product isn't built. So don't get bogged down in the product, because then they'll start talking to you about the product and how you're going to do this and how you're going to do that. And then you don't know the answers in lots of cases. So don't talk about that. The least time spent on the do is the better. Just, this is what it does. This is great. And I'll give you examples of that now in a moment. And then, so that's your solution. And then, go back to here again. What I want to know is in terms of, where are you on this journey? Are you at this for the last 5 years? Are you at this for a year? What's happened in that year? I've built out the team. I've hired 2 more people. Enterprise Ireland have given me some money. Friends and family have given me some money. So I want to know that, because what you're looking for as an investor meeting you for the first time, what you're looking for is proof that other people believe in you, proof that other people see value in you, proof that your family see value in you, your work colleagues see value in you. And that's what you're looking for in terms of milestones. So that usually is a slide, it's just a line. And it says, we started in this, we did this, we did this, we did this, we did this. And what happens is over the years, things get dropped off that because they're not nearly as important. You know, in 2 years' time, you're saying we got 250,000 from an investor. So you don't be talking about the 20,000 your father gave you or whatever that is. It's not relevant anymore. So that's a slide that's milestones. The other thing I want to know then is who's your competition? And this fascinating, it only took me years to realize this. In lots of cases, your competition could be Excel. But it's an aspect of something in Excel that Excel does. And you've taken an aspect of that and you've made it really easy to do. So it is Excel, and there's a company I worked with years ago, and what they did was, the guy, which fascinated me, he said that 70% of banks, and this is 4 or 5 years ago, and it probably hasn't changed that much, were still doing their bank reconciliations on Excel spreadsheets. And I said, that can't be the case. That's ridiculous. And he says, it is. That's what they're doing. So he says, what we've done is we've taken an aspect of what Excel do, and it's now a platform that says, if you're a bank and you want to do your bank reconciliations, this is how you do it. This is the platform you use. And now they've been hugely successful. But the competition is Excel. And sometimes if you take Scurry, sometimes what they realised was it was every other transport company in Ireland was doing sort of the same thing and looking for backloads and things like that. So that didn't work, and they found a different way of doing it. Then the other thing that they'll want to know, and this is, they only want to know this if they've loved the first things you've told them. You're never going to get to these questions if they sort of weren't interested in what you talked about. So you're ticking off the boxes, and they like this, and they like this, and they like this, and they like this. And then the next question is, okay, so what are your sales projections for the next, if you're an early stage startup, I'd be right in saying it's probably 3 years. What do you think you're going to do in the next 3 years? If you're a bit further down the road, it's what you're going to do in the next 5 years. And so we want to know, and the thing that's interesting about that is, that question is much more about what's your level of ambition. It's not what the actual sales is. It's, do you have a big vision for this? Because if you don't have a big vision for it, we're not the people to be talking to, and you don't need investment. You can just build a very nice business that has $1 million or $2 million turnover. It'll be a very nice business. But what we're looking to invest in is businesses that have 10 million and 20 million and 50 million. So there's a sales forecast that you talk about. And if they're still interested, then the next thing you talk about is, what are you asking for? What do you need to get that done? What do you need to hire the person, to add an additional person to the team, to buy the kit that you need to build whatever it is that you want to build? So what are you looking for? And what I've found over the years is, I think particularly in Ireland, it doesn't apply in America, we always ask for too little. We're always playing ourselves down. You tell a story that says, we're going to be supplying Google and Hewlett Packard and all the rest of it, and then when it gets to the ask, you say, I'm looking for 20 grand. And that just immediately says you haven't got the ambition. In America, I think everyone starts at like 3 million. That's where they start. This is the idea, and we're looking for 3 million. But we're not America. So the point really is then, clearly you need an ask. And then, if I was to ask you for €100, what would you say to me?
What's it for?
What's it for? So that's the answer to the ask. This is what I'm looking for. and this is what I want it for. So it's not just throwing out an amount of money. I want to know how you're going to spend my money. And that's often just as simple as a pie chart. It's a pie chart that says, we're going to spend 25,000 on recruitment. Well, no. I had this recently. I'm doing some work for an ag tech program out of UCD, and it's a huge program. And one of the guys said, we're going to spend 50,000 on hiring an ag tech expert. And I was saying to him, I don't think you're going to get an ag tech expert for 50,000. You know, so your first thing you're going to have to say is that's 150,000 just for that person alone. So you need to be realistic about it. But what you're doing is, if you're asking for an amount of money, you're going to tell the person how you're going to spend that amount of money. And then they can either agree with you or they can disagree with you. And if they disagree with you, they're not going to give you the money. But if they say, that seems like a sensible way to spend my money, and then they partner with you and they give you the money, and away you go. What's next? What's next on the slide? Oh, yeah. So let me tell you, why are the planets different sizes? And this is a presentation piece of advice, but also it's an important piece of advice. If someone gives you, for simplicity, let's say, someone gives you half an hour to pitch. Come to meet us, we have half an hour. Where do you spend your time? Spend your time here. I would suggest you spend 5 minutes here. If they don't see the problem and the opportunity, you're not going any further anyhow. So you spend most of your time here to get that story across to them. Then you go here. And then you sort of elaborate on who the customer will be and who the potential customers are, and the number of people you're already talking to and the meetings you've already have, and the people who've decided to run a pilot project with you, and all of that sort of thing. And that's where you spend that time. And then you spend time here. So let's say it's half an hour. I would say 10 minutes here, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here. Now 20 minutes is gone. But it's a very valuable 20 minutes because you've answered all the key questions that they need to know. These things here are, I would say, and probably Aidan might disagree slightly with, these questions here are more 2-3 minute comments. And the reason I suggest the 2 to 3 minute comments is they're the areas where you're weakest. They're the areas that you don't know about. They're the areas where you need investments and investors and people like Propelor to advise you and support you and encourage you. But if you're not madly enthused about here, here, and here, you're not going to get to here. Simple reality. So these things, and probably, and I know this from my own experience as well, this is the most scary bit. You know, what do I say? Do I say 1 million? Do I say 2 million? Do I say 5 million? Do I say 50,000? I don't know. But whatever you say, you have to be confident saying it. And this young man at the back has sort of said that they're making, am I oversimplifying it by saying you make jams?
It's correct. Yeah.
It's correct, okay. But he makes jams, but Tesco are going to stock them nationwide, his jams, all over Ireland. Now, we make jams. Our jams are sort of, there's no sugar, it's organic, so this is really important, and people are looking for that. And let me tell you who we're already invoicing. We're already invoicing Tesco, and they're stocking it in every stop in Ireland. Do I want to know more? Because now my natural, if I'm an investor, I'm saying, well, if they're doing it in Ireland and it's a success, they'll do it in the UK and they'll do it wherever else. And who's doing this with you? And I want to know that, because are you planning to make the jams yourself? Are you going to contract out the jams if someone's going to make them for you? I need to know all those sort of things, but they're the key messages. This is interesting, and the reason it's a different color is that, if I can ask you on the jams, if the jams go well, what will you do next?
Get into more stores.
Get into?
More stores. Other customers.
Okay, no. You're selling everywhere. Every supermarket we go into now has your jams. It's really successful. What are you going to do next?
I transfer the same solution that I provide into a different category.
Okay. Give me an example of that.
So it's all about reducing nasties like sugar, but increasing the taste experience and making it more tasty. And I'm going to apply the same principle into, for example, fruit gums as well.
Okay. So now, what we've done here is we very clearly, simple story, we're going to make jams. We're already into Tesco, and I already have the team and we're building it. Let me tell you about the next big opportunity. It's sweets. Sweets that don't have sugar in them, sweets that are good for your kids. So that's where we're going next. But the danger, lots of people, is they get these two stories confused. They want to tell me both, and I don't understand either of them. I'm sort of lost a bit. And so I'm always saying you will have, and I don't mean to be offensive in this, but making jams is a nice business, but what else are you going to do? And that's what that message is. So once we have this up and running and we're in super value and we're in the next thing we have to offer them, or the next thing we're planning to offer them to build up our business with those existing clients, is sweets that don't have sugar in them, gums that don't have sugar in them. So that's the message you're looking for there. And that's the story you tell. And then finally, and this is more a presentation skill than anything else, this is, I want everyone as a communicator to finish by saying, this is how our customers are better as a result of buying our product. And the only reason someone will buy something is because they believe it's better. Your children can enjoy jams, but they'll be healthier. Your children can enjoy jams, but they'll have teeth when they're 40 years of age. You can put it that whatever way you want to describe that, but that's where you want to finish. That's how this finished. So simply what I'll do, and I'll send it on to Rosemary, I can give you templates for that conversation. But the point I want to make, and the reason I explain it in this way, is that the first beginning, I'm suggesting you go, this is the problem, this is the team who has the expertise in the problem, and these are the people we plan to invoice. That's really important. And then the other things get answered, and this is what we're going to do, that's get answered. A year down the road, it may very well be, this is the problem hasn't changed, but let me tell you who we're already invoicing. And let me tell you how much sales we have. And in our first year, we have a $250,000 in sales. No, 400,000, wasn't it, in sales? We have 400,000 in sales. Now I'm sitting up and paying attention because this is not a pipe dream. This has now become a reality. And I'm now going to tell you how we make the 400,000, 400 million, or 40 million, or whatever that is. So the reason I explain it this way is when I send you a template, and when you look at all the people who send you templates, they send you templates. And because it's on a page, you want to follow the formula on the page or the format on the page. So often I see it that because of the way it's laid out in the template, you don't talk about the team until the final slide or the second last slide. I want to know from the beginning who you are. I want to know why you're excited about this. I want to know what your business experience and acumen is. So these are continually rotating and moving and changing and become more important and less important. But it's to realize that you tell the story and you keep giving the good stuff first. And the good stuff will change as the business evolves. And that's what you do. So it's not sort of something that we turn up and we do this and we sort of tell it the same way every time. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for you to turn up and realize that, but I don't want to follow a template that someone's given me, and I'm talking about, it's interesting, just to sort of I'm not getting sidetracked really. I was contacted by a guy in Canada a couple of years ago who had this amazing idea to do with telecoms. And he came over to Ireland to meet me, and I had a 3-hour meeting with him. and this is between you and I, at the end of the 3-hour, yeah, and I'm not mentioning his name, but at the end of the 3-hour meeting, I said, I can't deal with this man. This man will break my heart. He went all over the place. There was no focus whatsoever. He went all over the place. But one of the really interesting observations was, he said, look, when I come to Ireland to pitch, or when I come to Europe to pitch, they want this structure. They want to know, they want you to answer the questions and show how it becomes a business and all of that sort of stuff, and they want to know that. He said, I fly down to Silicon Valley and all they're interested in is the vision. Just tell me the vision. Tell me how many billions this is going to be. And then we'll decide whether we're interested in this or not. And then you'll obviously have to come back at some stage and answer all these questions. So there's a part element of that, and that's the problem story. This is the big problem we solve for people, and that's what you're looking to do. So I think it needs to be, again, and Aidan made this point, who are you talking to? What's who will they invest in? Who will they support? What values? How much money? What's the cost? So you make all that judgment if we go back to who's the audience. But that's how I suggest you do it, and I'll come back to that. We'll come back to that now in a moment. But let me move on and give you a couple of examples. This is a company called Scipio, started by Dan Cohn. You've probably, if you look at LinkedIn, Dan is all over LinkedIn in the last sort of 6 months or so. And what I like about this is it does two things. If you're putting up a slide, it should be capable of being read within 10 seconds. There should be very little words on it. There should be visuals where possible. And this is an example of that, because what Scipio does is, if you go to a concert or a football match or an event, what Scipio do is to get you to skip from the back of the queue to the middle of the queue to the top of the queue and get served quicker. That's what they do. And they do that in one slide. I don't need any other slide to explain to you what Scipio do. That's what they do. But Dan started to tell me the story about 2 years ago, and I said, no, hold on. I know this story. This is my story. And I want you to imagine, it can be Crow Park, it can be wherever you were, but my story was, when he started to explain to me what we do, I said, I know this story. And I was in the Aviva with my son and two of his mates, and Ireland were playing Scotland. It's probably 2 or 3 years ago, and Ireland were playing Scotland. And one of the lads, just before half-time, said, I'll go down and get the pints in. And he disappeared off to get the pints in. And we waited till half-time, and then we went down to find him. But when we went down to the catering area in the Aviva, there was thousands of people there, all queuing up. We couldn't find him. He couldn't find us. We were ringing on the phone. He wasn't hearing his phone. So we had to buy more pints. And because we were delayed buying the more pints, by the time we come up, the match was on about 5 minutes. And Michael, what's his name? Can I tell you? I remember this morning, and now I don't know. Michael Obafemi, scored the best goal Ireland as a soccer team had ever scored. He scored it 2 minutes directly after half-time. We were still in the bar. We missed the best goal that Ireland as a soccer team had ever scored. So we came back up, and then about 10 minutes later, the guy who went down to buy the 4 pints, he arrived up, and he's livid, because he's bought 4 pints. He's had to drink 2 of them, and he's had to leave 2 behind, which is the mortal sin. Oh, you had to leave 2 behind. Now, can you think of a similar scenario that you've been in, or something similar? It's happened to you in some situation, whether it be a rock concert or whether it be that. And that's what a problem story does. A problem story needs to engage you. It has to be, I can't wait to tell my dad about that. I can't go home. Oh, wait till I tell my wife about this. This is amazing. So it's not just a story, it's a story that engages people. And as soon as they bought into it, then they see. And then what Dan explains is, so how we solve that problem is you download our app, You sit in the crowd. Before halftime, you order your drink and your food on the app. You pay for it on the app. They send you a QR code. You go down to the priority queue and you get paid, you get served in 30 seconds as opposed to the average of 2.5 to 3 minutes. That's what you do. That's really cool. Now, the thing that's interesting is who's the customer? Catering company. It's not us. We'll use it because it's amazing, but we're not going to, we're not going to pay for the app. We're not going to do that B2C thing. We're not going to do that. We might. Some of us might do it, but we're not. But if we have it for free and it solves a problem for us, but the thing that's interesting is the customer is the catering company because now they're serving people in 30 seconds as opposed to an average 2.5 to 3 minutes. They know what people want in advance. They can prepare it in advance. They can do their stock control. They can do all sorts of management of things to make their business more efficient. So the story is about you and I, and we buy into it, but the customer is the catering company. And now, it's probably 2 years since I worked with Dan. He's now in the Aviva. He's now in Leopardstown. He's now in loads of pop concerts that are going on. And that's the point I'm making is join this queue, get served quicker. Skip from the back to the front. Don't stand for anything less. That's his story. And it's already, now he's a clever guy, a smart businessman, good commercial sense, but that's how he tells that story. The other one I want to talk to you about is, this is a company called X-Wave. And X-Wave was started by Professor Ronan Killian out of Vincent's Hospital, and he's a radiologist expert. And what they say is we save lives by ensuring the patient gets the best test first. That's what they do. And I didn't know until I started working with them. I just presumed the scan was a scan. I didn't realize there's loads of different scans. And what most people do is they don't get the right scan first time. So the story they tell is, this is Mary. She's 52 years of age. She's had breast cancer previously, and she's now having headaches. She goes to a doctor and she says, I've had headaches for about 3 weeks. And the doctor says, I'll give you some painkillers. And the doctor gives her some painkillers. And she comes back 3 or 4 weeks later and she says, still have the headaches. And the doctor says, I'll leave it for another week or two and see what happens. So she comes back and she still has the headaches. So the doctor says, I'll send you to a consultant. And the consultant sends her for a scan. Now in Ireland, someone was telling me this recently, in America this all happens in 24 hours. In Ireland, the doctor writes to the consultant writes back to you, the consultant agrees a date with you, so now you're already into 5 or 6 weeks or 7 weeks before anything has happened. So you go for the scan, and you meet the consultant, and the consultant, I have good news, says everything's okay. But Mary says, I still have the headaches. So four scans later, Mary discovers that she's a tumour in her brain because she's got the right scan. But that's now 6 months later and it's too late. And that's happening all the time. So what X-Wave are saying is 1 scan, 1 visit, 1 rapid diagnosis. And as a business now, they're going business probably 3 or 4 years. Their software is in every doctor's computer in Ireland. They're in, at the time I was working with them, they were already in 5 or 6 hospitals. And that's where they come and they said, our customers are hospitals. Because rather than spending money on 4 scans once, we get the right scan first time every time. So we save the hospital money, we save lives, we do all of that. And that's what they do. But interestingly, when I met Dr. Ronan Killian for the first time, he was explaining to me how to read a scan. I said, I don't know how to read a scan. And you're not going to train me how to read a scan, but we've got to find the story, and that's the story they tell. And that's the message that gets across to people. So we save lives by ensuring the patient gets the best test first. And interestingly, if we go to the other, which wasn't developed at the time, but now it is, that planet that says other, What they're now doing is they're reading the scans by AI. They don't even need a radiologist. And only when it flags up something does the radiologist become involved. And that's how you tell us. And I would suggest to you that as I'm telling you that story, you know someone who's been in that situation. You know someone who didn't get the right scan. You know someone who was sort of 6 months hanging on before eventually they got some information. You just do. So that's what good storytelling does. You could explain to me about the scans, or you can tell me how Mary outcome could have been dramatically better as a result of their technology, which it now is in actual fact. So we're back to here. This is me boasting. Take a moment to read that. And that's what I help people to do. I help them to sort of get to the situation that they make a good first impression, first time, every time. I'm finished. This is my final slide. I capture your business story and I give you the confidence to tell her to sell it. That's what I do. People like Propel will help you a lot more in the technical details, but I'm the person who says, do you want to make a good first impression? This is how you do it. This is how you tell the story. The other point I'd make to you is I produce an article every fortnight on my website and on LinkedIn, and it's always about pitching or presenting. You're very welcome to sign up. There's already over 150 articles on the website, and they're all generally in the area of presenting and pitching and communicating. They're all there. They're all for free. Thank you very much.
Great.